Okay, so as we shift our focus to chapter 3, um, in chapter 3, we really are talking about timing differences, right? And I've alluded to this several times in class. The timing differences relate to when a revenue or an expense is recognized and the cash either comes before or after the revenue or expense. All right. So the visual we start this chapter with shows accounting periods, and I've alluded to this in class as well. So when we think of annual reports, and we looked at annual report for Walmart in class, um, that is a 12-month period. Now the company gets to choose the 12-month period. You may recall that Walmart has a February 1 to January 31 fiscal year. Right. There are other accounting periods that we should be aware of. Anytime you see the term semi-annual, that's a 6-month period. Right. Um, monthly obviously relates to a particular month. And then quarterly is any 3-month period. Well, let me say that differently. Quarterly is a 3-month period, so there are 4 quarters in a year. Depending upon the fiscal year, but if we were a calendar year company, first quarter, as you can see on the screen, will be January, February, March. Second quarter, April, May, June, and so on. Right? So we want to compare the cash basis to the accrual basis. All right? And so the cash basis of accounting is where the actual receipt of cash is what triggers the recognition of a revenue, and the incurrence of an expense is what, or let me say it this way. On the cash basis of accounting, when you get cash, you'd recognize the revenue, and when you spend cash or write a check, or then that's when an expense is recorded. All right. Under the accrual basis of accounting, revenue is recognized when the business has provided a good or a service. All right. Expenses are recognized when the expense is incurred. So that could be, for example, utilities. That would be when you get the utility bill, right? Not when you write the check for it. All right. And we've already recorded a few transactions where the a good or service was provided on account. All right. And when a good or service is provided on account, that's still a revenue under the accrual basis. All right. So we reference the cash basis because, well, typically that's how most people conduct their personal finances. If you have a job, you probably don't accrue salary every day. You just record when you get paid. Right? So most individuals conduct their personal finances on the cash basis of accounting. The thing to keep in mind is that cash basis of accounting is not GAAP, which is, of course, generally accepted accounting principles. You cannot use the cash basis for financial statement reporting purposes. All right? So everything that we learn this term is accrual basis accounting. So to further illustrate this, let's take a look at an example. So a transaction, 100. And actually, let me pull up the laser point to kind of focus you to a certain thing. So a transaction, company paid $2,400 for 24 months of insurance, so a 2-year insurance policy, starting December 17th, 2017. Okay, so December 1st. Now, under the accrual basis, the check for $2,400 is written, but you don't recognize it. You only would recognize expense at the rate of $100 per month. All right, so accordingly, you'd have $100 related to the month of December 2017, $100 per month for every month in 2018, and then $100 per month until November, the end of November in 2019. Right, and that's what the accrual basis does, because alternatively, the way the cash basis would recognize this transaction, same transaction under the cash basis, since the cash was paid on December 1st, 2017, the cash basis would recognize that entire $2,400 as expense in that year, which of course can be misleading because that insurance expense benefits parts of 3 years, and primarily 2018 and 2019. It benefits 12 months in 2018 and 11 months in 2019. All right, which would be misleading, and that's why the cash basis is not GAAP. It can't be used for financial statement reporting purposes. All right, so if you've been paying attention in class, I've said this 100 times, but this is when we recognize revenue under the accrual basis. Revenue recognition principle states that we recognize revenue when the product or service is provided to our customer and at an amount expected to be received from customers. All right, so that's a long way of saying what I say. You recognize revenue when a good or service has been provided to the customer. Similarly, the expense recognition principle or the matching principle. Well, expenses are recorded in the same accounting period as the revenues related to them. All right, so the idea is expenses are incurred in the generation of revenue, and so those expenses need to be tied to that particular accounting period. This matches the expenses with the related revenue, which is important for profitability analysis because you know that the expenses generated in creating revenue are going to be recognized in the same period that the revenue is recognized. Or to say it another way, the expenses are matched to the revenues that they were incurred to create.